Everything you say now can be used against you in a later clip that I
All
create,
right.
only to
Yeah.
embarrass you. Um,
Sounds good to me.
but
Any
yeah,
luck?
yeah. Many have tried.
Yeah. How can one be embarrassed? How can I be embarrassed of myself? I don't know what I'm trying to. I'm always embarrassed of myself, you know?
Hey, that's the trick. You're like the Incredible
Yeah.
Hulk. That's the trick. I'm always
Right.
angry. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. um, but yeah, I mean, I've heard you interview people. You've interviewed me, and I know for you, one of your rules is, if I ask you a question you don't want to answer, like no pressure, and it's the same here. I'm not trying to get you to go to some place you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Um, and do you want me to call you Bruce? I know you as Bruce, but I know sometimes it's like, well, now I don't know. You tell me what's good.
You can call me Bruce.
Bruce is fine. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Um,
My real name's Bryce, but you can call me
yeah.
Bruce. Everyone calls me Bruce. My family calls me Bruce. It's all good.
Oh, do they really? I don't think I knew
Starting
that.
to, yeah.
Because
Yeah, but
it's Bryce Hooper, I think we had talked about. But is that
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always remember
I go
Hooper
by
because of
Bruce.
Jaws. Yeah.
I go by Bruce Cooper. Exactly. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
everyone says.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I just recently watched that for the first time. I couldn't finish it. It scared me.
It's a pretty scary movie.
Just it's like the feeling of getting chased
Yeah.
like is so unnerving, and then the fact that you can't see it because it's like underwater, and it's like they did a really good job of making it feel very chaotic,
Yes.
and it still holds up. It's
Yeah.
really creepy the way they did it.
I mean, you don't even see it for
I
so
know.
long into the movie. That's
And that's
genius.
what's scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes in any movie is in that movie when they're kind of at night, they're up late and they're like comparing scars and telling like the stories of how they got hurt this way or that. Like
Right.
I just I love that scene. I think it's just so
Yeah.
well. The acting is great. The different characters, they're so different. The different characters on the boat, and it's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
it's a good flick. My wife and I, we were out eastern Canada. A friend of mine got married out in Halifax, out in Nova Scotia, and we went out to. There's a kind of a famous, really pretty area on the east coast here called Cape Breton. So we went out there, and we were at a bed and breakfast, and we were going whale watching the next morning out on a boat, and we watched Jaws the night before
Oh,
and it was like the worst idea.
yeah, man.
It was all fresh in our minds the next
It's like
day.
a it's like taking a 14-hour plane ride and then watching
Yeah,
Castaway.
exactly.
It's like, what were you thinking?
What were we thinking?
Nothing else was on.
Are you sure that's a whale? I don't think that's a whale.
Well, what's really crazy is there's only like 10 shark bites a year
Right.
worldwide or
Right.
something like that. Like
Right.
they really put this like fear
Yeah.
into an animal that really doesn't
Yeah.
kill or hurt that many people,
Yeah.
like there's
Yeah.
but what are they gonna do? Like make Seatbelt the movie?
Yeah,
Or,
right?
you know,
Heart disease.
yeah,
Dun, dun,
yeah, obesity.
dun.
Snickers bar, the movie. How do I ain't scared of that.
Bring that
So
on.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't see it as late as you, but I saw Jaws late as well. And I know though people at the time when I was young when it came out that it like they wouldn't go in the water from watching it. And I
Right.
actually had that experience. I watched like a knockoff movie called Piranha. And this was like I think it came out in the 80s. I think there's like a more new one with like Jerry Connell or something his name is. I don't know. But
Interesting.
there's kind of a newer one that's like Piranha 3D and it's kind of cheeseball. This one was a low budget, but it took itself very seriously. And it was about these piranha that were able to survive in fresh water and like killed a bunch of kids at summer
Oh
camp and stuff like
yeah.
that.
I
And
feel like I've seen something like that.
yeah. So that one scarred me. But it wasn't Jaws. It was the small budget piranha that got me. But yeah.
Well, so Edith is she's a journalism major, but then she has like a secondary degree in film or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is interesting.
Hmm.
We were talking a couple of weeks ago, well, right after we watched Jaws, and in like the really early, like there's a really famous example of like a really early movie when when it was like captioned and stuff and there was no talking, where a train was like turning in, and it was like the train was coming at the screen
Mm,
or like at the camera, and everyone in the audience like
like bailed.
jumped out of the way. There's like pictures of like women like throwing themselves out of the way of this train that's on the screen because they just didn't know how to handle it.
Right. I've never
And like
seen anything like that. Yeah.
that's a crazy thought, right? Like,
Right.
of course, I mean, now that sounds so out of this world, but back then it was just probably like, what in
Right.
the world is this?
Well, it's very similar to like me being in VR in that Shark Tank
Exactly.
and freaking out. And 50 years from now, people are gonna be like, "What? Like, come on, dude."
Yeah.
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 He's faking it.
Nobody
It's
would believe
right.
that.
Yeah.
Graphics, like, come on.
Right.
Oh, you're breathing still? I guess you're not underwater, idiot. But
Yeah.
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 Exhibit A. Man fall. Yeah. So funny.
That's crazy. Yeah. The old train coming in. Well, listen, thanks, man, for doing this.
Of course.
I really appreciate it. I feel like, me starting the podcast, and I know, like, I feel like I kind of started and did a few and then kind of was like, I don't know what to do next. I'm starting to
Yeah.
get more ideas for it again and more energy into it again. But just like in general, it sometimes seems to me like faith and religion and spirituality and that stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like seen a lot of times as it's going to cause arguments, so let's not do it. Like a lot of Twitch channels will just be like, that's the rule. My Twitch channel has that as a rule in the chat.
Right.
And that's fine, but I think that's true in most of our lives. People don't really want to talk about that usually. And so I just found for me, there was no place to talk about it. So eventually the podcast, kind of was like, okay, I'm going to try to organize my thoughts and just talk here and kind of go there and see what
Yeah.
happens. And so it's
It
cool
is
to me
weird.
that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, it is weird that it is kind of sensitive, right? Like, why? Like, I've always kind of wondered the same thing. Like, why is it a sensitive
Yeah,
topic? Or are we catering to like the one or two kind of
right,
people who are sensitive about it, or are we just,
right. Like we'd rather not
oftentimes
go
like
there.
we write rules because of like one or two bad apples,
Right. Yeah.
and like, or just like we just don't want to go there. I talk about it sometimes. I kind of have an interesting. Well, we'll get into it, but yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there are some who cannot handle that kind of conversation and still be respectful, but a
Yeah.
lot of us can, and
Yeah.
so but I think too, probably like from a bigger like a great big channel that has lots of viewers, like a big TV show or a movie franchise, they don't want to necessarily locate themselves in any way that's going to alienate some of their audience. So
Sure.
I kind of get that. Like you don't want anyone to feel like they're not welcome or not a part of it. And so you got to kind of be careful about that. But
Yeah.
after 3 years I'm like, yeah, what
Yeah.
do I got more to win by being open than I do about trying to, and not that that was ever my rationale before, it just didn't come up. But
Sure.
but it's cool to kind of do that a bit and then have some people be like, oh yeah, like I'll talk. Like I've had some talks with people in chat while streaming now about it, where people say, oh yeah, I do, this or that. And obviously I spoke with Manga about his experience, growing up as a Mormon and then kind of coming to the point where he realized that he just didn't believe in it anymore and kind of trying to leave it, and being married to someone who's Mormon and what that meant, and just like interesting. And it's cool that some people, I think it's a part of a lot of our lives, even if it's not the main part of our lives. It's something that touches a lot of people, so it is something we can talk about and kind of
Sure.
chat about a little bit. Yeah, so thank you for being open to do that as well, man.
Yeah, of course.
And
I do think it's super interesting.
yeah. So, It's not like I have a set thing here where I'm gonna have a bunch of questions laid out.
Sure.
It's pretty open, and whatever tangents we go on, we go on. It's not, whatever. But
Yeah. Do
as you
you
know,
believe in God? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Answer no. Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
interested in your story too, and how, you know, kind of the framing of it growing up, and
Yeah.
how and when did religion get introduced? What was your like? I'm interested in that stuff. So if I'm kind of like, if you just want to kind of tell your story a bit, what you think, and then I'll ask questions to fill it out if I'm curious about something that you didn't really talk too much about, and we'll just kind of play it by ear, man. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I feel like how I was raised in regards to religion is probably going to be pretty similar to a lot of people.
Okay.
But there is some kind of anomalies maybe peppered in there that unique experiences. I grew up in a kind of a smaller town, but it was very, and it's funny. I was actually talking to my mom about our old neighborhood
Hmm.
today on the phone. Um, well, I grew up in a very it was a very kind of tight knit neighborhood.
Hmm.
There was a like a dead end on my street where all of my friends lived in that kind of little, imagine like a T or an L, like an L,
Hmm.
right? So I lived on the big side of the L,
Okay.
and then the little side of the L was the dead end, and
Okay.
like all my friends lived in the dead end, and we would play kickball
Hmm.
and it was about the time when I could I would like ride my bike around the neighborhood by myself.
Hmm.
Um, there was a church, uh, a little chapel church kind of on the far outskirts of our neighborhood that one day my mom was just like, let's let's go there,
Hmm.
right? You kind of like an after school program sort of thing. I was probably 6 or 7. My mom was
Wow.
my mom was fairly my mom, is Christian
Okay.
and was fairly religious before I was born, um, as a kind of a means to. I think she hit a point in her life where, um, it's interesting. I've never really asked her, but
Hmm.
I think, kind of trying to find comfort in something that she didn't get maybe through her family.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think going to church made her feel welcome and gave her something to have faith in. I guess
Right.
I don't know. And
So did her family growing up? They weren't like avid churchgoers. Like that wasn't something she grew up with as like a tradition thing doing.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think my grandma did, but it was more just my grandma's a very
Hmm.
um it was just kind of like, I don't want this to sound mean, but it's going
No.
to. My grandma reminds me of the rich people on the Titanic.
Okay.
Very fashionable, did things that were fashionable, like
Okay.
always worried about what she drove and how she dressed.
So
And I think
appearances were important.
and I think it was like a fashionable thing to go to
Hmm.
church. Like
Right.
that's just what you did with your
Everyone was doing.
kids. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that that's kind of the extent of how my grandmother, you know,
Right.
did it. It was like just something that they did. And then
Hmm.
and my mom, when she was out on her own, she didn't go to church. And then, we found her calling or whatever later on in life. And then when we were kids, we started going to this church again.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. My dad is the same way. I would consider my dad a pretty not a very religious guy, but believer in God and Jesus and a Christian and all that. My
Hmm.
dad never went to church with us ever.
Hmm.
He just didn't go. He didn't like it. He would fall asleep there. He just didn't. He would go hunting and stuff on Sunday instead,
Right.
which a lot of kids in my neighborhood's dads didn't
Yep.
go. It was like a mom thing, which is
Yes.
another kind of a weird,
I think
you know.
that's kind of somewhat common. I think that
Yeah.
that mom thinks it's good for you, and I have control over the kids, so I'll take them. And dad's kind of like, see ya.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I want to go be outside, and I don't feel God in there. I feel him out here or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like my dad didn't see the need. He always told me like he didn't see it as a necessity to his beliefs, or
Right.
what. I don't know.
Right.
But
Interesting.
we did the Wednesday thing where like we'd go to church on Wednesday as kids, and it was
Hmm.
fun, man. Like a lot of we had like a Pinewood Derby
What is
races at
that?
the church. Pinewood Derby. So you buy it's a way to like, it's like a fundraiser. So you would spend $20 or something on this little box that came with four wheels, two
Oh.
rods, and a block of wood.
Okay.
And you couldn't add anything to it. Like that, what you had is what you had.
Okay.
And me and my dad would every year would whittle, we'd try to put we'd try to leave more wood on the front than on the back, so it was like front
Front
heavy.
heavy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there would be like a 4 or 10 lane track where everyone would race their
Wow.
little Pinewood Derbies down, and they were, I don't know, 10 inches long, just a little car.
Hmm.
And
That's cool.
yeah, and you get 20 kids, a couple $1,000 for the church,
Sure.
sort of thing, and for $400, I don't know, I can't do math,
Whatever
but
it
anyway,
is.
you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Whatever it
like a
is.
way for them and then the winner would win like a
$400.
prize bag or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so like, I had those memories and stuff, and
Hmm.
and just, it wasn't, it never really for me, it was just like an activity, right? Like I was the
Sure.
type of kid who, like, everyone would say pray, and I would look down and like keep my eyes open, or like, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
a kid.
You knew to do that action then, but it wasn't really connected to anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'd
Sort
always
of.
had like I'd always had a good experience
Right.
with it. Like when my grandpa Al died,
Hmm.
and I was a little older. I was, I think, like a freshman in high school,
Okay.
and that was my mom's dad. And I remember that was kind of the very first time I understood. Like, to me, my mom was obviously devastated.
Hmm.
Like, I'd never really seen her that tore apart, but she had, at the same time, she she had this like comfort
Hmm.
in her beliefs.
Hmm.
And I really think I started to understand how it helped her in grieving over my grandpa,
Hmm.
because they were extremely close.
Hmm.
My mom really, my grandpa Al was always my mom's stepdad, which was my grandpa Sonny, who I was extremely close with. So this is interesting. Didn't have the best. He didn't really know how to. He wasn't very nice to her growing up, but Al always was. Is that, like, her real
Right.
dad was just. I mean,
Hmm.
her real dad was just like the sweetest, guy in the world. But when he passed away, I think I saw like, that was this
Hmm.
kind of this interesting turning point in my mind, that religion to my mom was this like,
Hmm.
warm blanket
Right.
that her dad like was in a better place or something.
Hmm. That's
And it
amazing
was,
it obviously did, or at least it appeared to you that it was doing that for her so much that it like sticks out even now that you remember that. Like, wow, it
yeah.
carried her through that time, and it made it okay in a way.
Well, in this weird way, like, we all handle death or tragedy differently.
Right.
And I think that, like, my mom did everything she could to keep her dad alive for as long as,
Hmm.
she could, but at the same time, like, when it was inevitably going to happen, I think it was a real, I don't know what my mom would have done had she not had like
Right.
her faith. She would have been okay. She would have made it through and everything, but like, religion, I
Hmm.
think so much, like, to me growing up, like, it was like, don't sin or you go to hell.
Right.
And like, that's what religion was, but
Right.
then I think like that was the first time that I kind of realized that it was a little bit more, and that
Hmm.
it was like, it gave her just something to gave her like assurance or something that everything was going to be okay when her world came crashing down. You know, when my grandpa kind of suddenly passed away.
Right.
It was like a you know,
Hmm.
I don't know how to really describe it beyond that. And some people, you know, were like, well, it's just not real and they don't, you know, but to my mom, you know, my mom has never pushed religion on me. She's never pushed her beliefs on anyone
Right.
ever. To her, like, and even, you know, when I was in high school, I was kind of rebellious towards the whole, like, oh, like God isn't real or whatever. But like what
Sure.
she felt was very real.
Right.
And like what she continues to feel is extremely real, whether or not, you know, people want to believe it is or it isn't. Like her faith in religion, or her faith in where her dad is, or where his spirit is, or, you know, whether he's in heaven, or whether, you know, to her, like, that makes her happy. So
Right.
who am I or anyone else to say that she's incorrect? You know, like,
Right.
it's kind of a,
It
it
gave
is what it is.
it gave and gives her real strength and comfort and a perspective on life that helps her. So what's the
Yeah.
problem in a
Right,
way, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. She's not like out there saying that people are wrong and stuff, but
Right.
when, you know, when she's feeling like, when she's missing her dad at
Yeah.
night, and she
Yeah.
can, you know, think about him being in a better spot, or you know, no longer suffering, or whatever, like, I think that's a very beautiful thing, you know. And yeah, but anyway, so like,
Hmm.
th- I entered high school,
Hmm.
and we moved away from that neighborhood, and I entered high school, and I had some friends who played in a who played guitar and bass,
Okay.
and they went to this church, and they asked me if I wanted to go to the church and
This is,
play on the drums there.
so this is a different church now than the little chapel you were talking about earlier.
Yes, this
Okay.
is a different church in the little chapel. This is actually the church my mom and dad got married in, which is
Oh, okay.
another very interesting. So like, this is over in the Thurston area. We were in the Springfield area
Is Thurston
before.
like bigger? Is this like a bigger town or just another town?
It's still in the Springfield town, but it's over in the
Oh, I see.
it's like the left side of it. I wouldn't say it's
Mm.
bigger. It's maybe a little nicer, and it's over where the high school is. So,
Mm.
but
Okay.
they asked me if I had a drum set, but it wasn't very good, and I wanted to play, you know, I
Mm.
wanted to play music with other people.
Sure.
So they invited me to this church, which, you know, when you're a kid, like, it's hard to you know, it's hard to find a place where
Yeah.
a bass guitar, a drummer, and a guitarist can all get together and like not have the cops called on them. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
they have no idea what they're doing. They're just going to be as loud, and like, the bassist would turn his bass up to like a 3, so the guitarist would of course turn it to a 4,
Yeah.
and then before we know it, everyone's at 10, and it's like 8 o'clock at night. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I go to this church, and I
You're like,
have a
I'm in a band. Yeah. Let's go.
yeah, and it was cool. You know, it started out as this like excuse to go there,
Hmm.
to let them, you know, and they gave me a drum set. Like, they were
Wow.
really nice to me and stuff, and and then before I knew it, like, I started really enjoying being at this church, like,
Hmm.
not even to play music, like, I was making friends there, and kept me out of trouble.
Hmm.
And
Did they have like a youth group or anything?
yeah, it was a youth group, yeah,
Yeah.
like a Wednesday youth group.
Nice.
And I actually, I like, my very first girlfriend was there.
Oh,
And so
snap.
like, that was kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
And just a
Drummers. Drummers.
core group of people. I think most of them are still friends.
Hmm.
And it's almost like a gang almost, you know, like this like group of people that all met at
Sure.
this church. Um
Hmm.
but yeah, and then you know, my I guess my faith was kind of like rekindled then, but not like super hardcore, you know. I would never like admit it or like
Mm.
go on, you know what I mean? Like I kind of kept it in my back pocket sort of.
Yep.
And
When you went on a Wednesday night, just question,
yeah.
was it what did the night look like? Like was there a Bible study or like a sermon thing from a youth guy or something, or was it just the music and like kind of more games? Like what was it like for you? Do you remember?
Yeah, so you would so there was like the main chapel and then there was like the youth uh chapel area.
Okay.
So like the and it was an old church and then they built a new church on the side of it but kept the old church on the other side.
I see. Okay.
So like it was kind of an interesting, and then they took all the pews out of the other side and made it like a big area with a
Hmm.
little stage and stuff. And it would start with like Bible study. So
Okay.
like we'd get there probably 4:30 or 5 p.m.
Okay.
and you'd do Bible study, and there was, you know, they would have like activities and stuff like uh jeez, I don't even know. Like you'd get in little groups and talk about what you learned and
Okay.
or, you know, discussion. And then it would sometimes there'd even be like food. So then we'd
Hmm.
like break apart and like do the like food thing. And then I remember like we'd all get together and like go throw frisbees or something or
Mm.
play like the cornhole, or we'd all play music, or we'd watch a movie and then everyone would go home or go over to the other person's house. And it was just kind of like a big like get together that would slowly disintegrate over the evening, and then, you know, everyone would go their separate ways.
That's cool. It's funny hearing you talk about it because I led that at my church for
Oh,
years.
really?
That I got paid. That was my job for like six
It's
years,
Dude, it's
running the
so
youth group.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's really fun, and like you make like friends in a setting that doesn't seem, at least for me, like I knew that those people were like my friends and they weren't going to like
Mm.
talk bad about me or
Mm.
like, I don't know why. It just was like a really wholesome experience
Mm.
um in high school that I didn't feel judged. I felt really good. I really enjoyed it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then, you know, we would we'd get to practice. Like they gave us a spot to we could go
Mm.
in there. I think we'd go in on Monday and Thursday nights, and we just had the whole church to ourselves, just be as loud as we wanted
And just jam.
and just jam. And it was so fun. And
Wow.
like, you know, not a lot of opportunities to do that. But
Hmm.
um yeah,
Wow.
I don't mean to get so long-winded with this. I
No.
don't think I've ever like I don't think I've ever like thought about my religious history. It's
Mm.
interesting, like now that I'm in my 30s,
Hmm.
I'll be 34 next month.
Nice.
It was around when I turned 30 that I really started to um become okay for the most part with the idea of like with the fact of death,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
And like
Just like
I
accepting and thinking about being like, okay, yeah, that's
well
happening.
I found myself like praying more. I
Hmm.
found myself like turning to this old religious comfort blanket
Hmm.
because, you know, like, and being okay with that.
Right.
And because you know, you have friends that start, you know, you have a handful of friends who are dead now,
Sure.
and like, or and family members who are dead, and like people, you know, and you start to realize, like, at least for me, I started to realize that it's fragile, and like
Mm.
you know, not a lot of things about death are comforting. Like
Right.
you can't really think like, man, you know, the sweet embrace of death, you know, like
The sweet cold darkness.
yeah, and like what do you grab onto to make that concept even a little bit better?
Right.
Like what is you know, what do people who are, and I'm sure it exists. I'm sure people who are
Hmm.
atheist or you know, maybe other beliefs or whatever. I'm sure they have something they think about
Right.
to curb the anxiety of death.
Right.
And like it's always interesting to me what those things are. For me, um it's like death to me is the idea that hopefully my spirit lives on somehow,
Mm.
or it's a next, it's a chapter or something.
Right.
I don't know,
Right.
and I think like a lot of people kind of turn to, because like religion's the only thing that kind of tells you what happened, what could
Right.
happen after death.
And even it might be a guess, but it comes across with some authority, and at least there's something.
Yeah, at least there's
Yeah.
something that's most people are like, well, you turn to dirt and then and it's like, what does that mean though? Like what does that mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I have been finding myself like being okay with uh questioning why I'm hesitant.
Mm.
Why religion has a hesitance to me. Like it's okay in my mind to have faith. Like it's okay. I'm
Right.
retraining myself to
Mm.
say like it's okay to have.
Mm.
Do you want to get into? Do you want to get into like? Can I tell one more little story?
Absolutely.
So
No.
this is so funny. I worked at Costco
Yeah.
in my early 20s, and read like I was pretty rough
Mm.
in my early 20s. Like,
No.
we had party houses, and I would stay up all night just doing all sorts of stuff, and then
Okay.
I would go to Costco, and I'd be up for like 2 days,
Mm.
and like it was just hung over, and then you'd just drinking all night, smoking all cigarettes and pot, and just not taking care of myself, and
Mm.
being a reckless 20-year-old like we all are.
Mm.
And there was this guy that worked at the Costco that I went to, who would always collect carts together.
Okay.
And I loved collecting the carts because it was just, I got to be outside and didn't have to.
Oh, carts. I was gonna say
Carts.
what cards were you collecting, but right,
No, like the
gotcha.
baskets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he was a little bit older than me, but like he was known as the nicest guy in the store.
Mm.
And you have Costco, right? Costco's.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
Costco.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very tight knit community of employees in that store. Like
Okay.
everyone, it's almost like a restaurant. Like everyone is just
Mm.
so. I still have most of those guys' phone numbers.
Mm.
When somebody gets sick, we hear about it still, and I haven't worked there in 15 years,
Mm.
20, 13 years. Um, but one night, and I knew that he was going to like one of the Christian colleges here in town to be. I think he was like an acting pastor or youth pastor or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one night he like we so after he collected all the carts, you then kind of did security. So you would make sure that people got to their cars okay, and you'd make sure that there wasn't any weird people kind of hanging out in the parking lot.
Mm.
And we were sitting in my car,
Mm.
and we just started talking about religion or whatever, and he ended up like, I forget the term for it, but like pretty much we had started talking, and then like we prayed, and the next thing I remember, I just had this like, it was just this full on like release of
Mm.
all this emotion. It was wild.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stop crying.
Mm.
I like it was weird. It was almost like I was drunk. Like
Mm.
I just spilt my guts, because
Right.
I'd gone through some stuff with my dad, and I was in thousands of dollars in debt, and I was drinking every night, and I didn't have any direction in my life. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. No one was helping me. It was just this like kind of just this uh everything just kind of came to ahead.
Mm.
And he was just totally like understanding of it, and
Mm.
and told me. So I went to his church for a couple of months, and and started talking to people there, and really kind of changed my route on the direction I was taking. Quit drinking pretty much for the most part until I
Hmm.
could, you know, get things figured out. Got completely out of debt. Really just put me on a, well, didn't they didn't get me out of debt, but got me saving money so I could get myself out of these snowballs, you know.
Hmm.
And kind of like a lifeline of support, somebody I could call and talk to when I remember I really wanted an Xbox,
Hmm.
and I called him and I was like, dude, like I want this Xbox, but I got this bill, you know, help talk me out of it. And they were like, well, go
Hmm.
buy the Xbox if you really want it, but it's not going to make the bill go away. And I had never thought of it like that, you know, like, and like, it just little stuff like that, like put me on track.
Hmm.
And there was no commitment to them. Like, I didn't have to go. I didn't have to call. I never gave anyone
Right.
money. I never made any promises. They just like took me as me and helped me out.
Right.
And I'll never forget that. That was a very
Hmm.
kind thing, you know.
Hmm.
They didn't give me anything other than just
Right.
this kind of this like
An ear and
uh
a shoulder and some
y-
feedback when you ask for it, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and like I wasn't getting that from anyone anywhere, and
Right.
I wasn't looking for it. You know,
Yeah.
that's probably if I would have went to my mom, I was scared to death to go to my mom
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, mom, I'm $20,000 in credit card debt, and I
Yeah.
drink all night." You know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
a different conversation. Yeah.
yeah, but with them, they didn't care.
Right.
That didn't. Me telling them that I could go up to them
Yeah.
and be like, "I'm addicted to heroin," and I wouldn't be any less of a person to them.
All right.
And I wasn't. I obviously wasn't, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were judging me, and
That's awesome. Wow.
yeah,
So it sounds like, as a kid you had these kind of fond memories at this kind of local chapel. As a high school student, you found like kind of this warmth, safe space. Cool, you got a girlfriend there, and you have friends there, and you're
yeah,
jamming out with your drums, and like this cool kind of vibe to it. And as a young adult, it was kind of there for you when you were at a low point, and kind of played a role in putting you on a better path. I'm just kind of curious, like what what happened between them, like that it didn't turn into a sustained thing. Like it wasn't like the high school, like if you had been going every week all through high school, and then as a 21-year-old talk to this guy, it doesn't sound like that's actually what happened. That you'd kind of go, and then you would stop going, right? And
yeah.
I'm assuming. So can you remember like why that was? Was it sort of a sense of, well, I don't actually believe this stuff, or just
No,
what
I
what
think.
what happened? Yeah.
Well, you know, probably a lot of it was laziness or
Sure.
incorrect priorities. You know, like
Yeah.
maybe not incorrect priorities. I just said my priorities changed to what I thought was more important than going to church. I
Right.
mean, the the kind of, I guess that's something that I've always juggled with is like I do, you know, I do believe I do it's hard for me to say that I believe in like God and that I believe in Jesus and I believe in like Christianity,
Right.
because I don't practice it in terms of like going to church and stuff. I've
Right.
kind of like,
So just
but I
saying that, does it feel like I'm gonna get caught in
yeah,
like
it's
being
weird,
hypocritical about it?
like
Like
a
like
poser.
I'm a poser.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you know,
Sure
like,
you are.
oh, he's religious, sure. You know, the guy who talks about bidets all day and like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't be both, you know.
I see.
But what I'm saying, the bidets thing, man. If you don't have a bidet, I'm just
Let's talk about
yeah,
why we're really here. Okay.
sure, yeah. Um, but no, I mean it's I guess like I've always been feared of like, I guess a lot of it is like you do feel like you're going to be judged if you just come out and say like,
Mm,
hey, I'm a religious person.
right.
And maybe I'm not a religious person, but I do have a faith, and
Mm,
that faith helps me when I'm in my lowest points. So I don't know what you call that.
hmm.
I don't know, you know, I find myself praying to when I can't sleep. I find myself praying before long car rides. Just it just makes me feel better thinking that I'm not alone, I guess, or like somebody's watching out for me or something is watching out for me. And I don't know what you call that. I don't
Right.
know. I'm a God-fearing person. I'm scared to death of going to hell. I mean,
Mm.
like I think uh, if hell is a real thing, I think anyone would be scared to go to
Yeah.
hell.
That sounds awful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like, but what does that do I have to go to church to to really believe that? I don't. I feel I
Right.
really do believe it,
Right.
but I'm not probably being um I don't know, it's weird. Like,
Hmm.
am I being fair to the person I'm praying or the thing that I'm praying to? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's weird, you know?
Right.
It's kind of this like I don't know what stopped me. I guess just growing up and like because I have a lot of friends who I would say 99% of my friends would probably think I'm weird for saying that I have like a belief
Hmm.
in Christ, you know?
Like they think you're
They
just kind of
wouldn't
crazy.
No, they just would be like, I had no idea that you
Right.
felt that way.
That like
You know,
like
like
it's a total surprise.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, like or just I have friends who are very vocal about their their views on atheism and stuff. But
Sure.
I think what really I was thinking about this earlier, but I in my opinion, what really stands out is I believe all of my friends, regardless of their beliefs, would never push their beliefs on me.
Right.
So I feel that's what like that's my responsibility too. So it's just
Mm.
never really brought up, you know? Like
Right.
I don't want anyone to think that I'd be pushing something on them.
Like you're trying to like respect a social boundary that's just exists.
Yeah,
That
it's
hey,
like
you don't do
somebody
that.
asking me, yeah, they're like, "What do you weigh?" You know, like it's just like
Yeah.
it's just something that we don't talk about,
Right.
right? Like it's if you really want to know, I'll tell you, but if that's just kind of rude.
Right.
How much money do you make, you know? Like
Right.
it's just I
Right.
feel like in a weird way religion falls in that same bucket of just don't ask, don't tell sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny to me too. Like I totally get that and I'm that same way. Like, absolutely. But on the other hand, it's like sometimes talking about it, even when you don't agree on it, feels nice too. And kind of like, oh, I know you better because I know that about you, and you know me better because I think this about it. And
Yeah.
it's the conversation isn't about convincing, it's just about sharing. And then it's hard to find a way to talk about it and have it not come off like you're trying to convince. So
Right.
you got to be there with that person, and you have that understanding of each other. But um
I think a lot of people
mm,
too find it think that it's their responsibility to try to talk somebody out of being religious.
mm,
It's almost like they think they're hurting themselves by believing in something that they don't
right,
think is real.
right.
Like spend your efforts somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Like whether it's religion, organized religion causing wars or so on and so forth or
Sure.
whatever.
Sure.
They feel it's I shouldn't say they. I think a lot of people kind of have this moral obligation to try to quote unquote talk some sense
Right.
into people who have a faith.
Right.
And I simply put, I don't know how to combat that. I agree with a lot of things that they're saying,
Sure.
but it doesn't change the feeling I get
Right.
when I think about my faith and like
Right.
and that feeling and that thing that I have that I can turn to when I'm feeling really down or when I'm needing help, like that's a very real thing. And no one can tell me that I don't care
Right.
what it is. It's real to me,
Right.
like
It's not, yeah. And in a lot of ways, like the arguments, the sort of cerebral arguments around atheism against religions or Christianity, and specifically, how old the Earth is, and like these more kind of scientific, kind of factual things.
Right.
You, y- how you feel when you pray, or when the comfort that it brings about death, or you think about your grandpa or whatever. It's not based on any of those things. So
Right.
you're attacking a foundation that this house isn't built on. So I don't. It's like we're missing each other a bit with that stuff.
Yeah.
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 Like
It's
I'm
like
fine
kind
with
of
the
like
Earth being old, and like I'm okay. I don't care. Like yeah.
it's like telling me that candy doesn't taste good because it's hurting me. Or not,
Yeah. Yeah.
what it's like a not it doesn't it there's I understand the link that you're trying to make, but the outcome that I experience is something that is just different than something that you've experienced. And you know, I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
if you know, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And
And like I think a lot of people actually are in that boat. It probably in the U.S. and Canada and other places where
yeah,
Christianity has been around, um, and it's the language that we speak when we talk about spiritual things. Obviously, other cultures with other dominant religions, they're gonna speak that language, and but God and Jesus, like
right.
those are the words that we know, and it's what our faith is sort of clothed in. I don't know how else to say that,
Yeah.
um, but I think what's happened is, like, I hear you talk about how it is for you, and you use phrases like "it's true for me," "it's right," "it's good for me," "it's right," and you're
Hmm.
not making blanket true. Jesus existed. He lived this long. He said these things. His death was this. What you're saying is, to you, it's this, right? And so that's kind of that's kind of like where I'm at for myself. Like I don't know what I think anymore. And
Yeah.
part of that is because I'm not sure I believe most of this stuff is true. In other words, I don't think when I read Genesis, I don't think that's how the world was made. When I you know just whatever. I'm just I'm not sure there's factually I believe a bunch of this stuff happened and is correct, and yet I still have and still can sometimes have that experience that you say you have, which is that you feel connected to something and that there is something bigger than you here. And that moment you had when you prayed with that guy at Costco, and that feeling of release and connection to something.
Yeah.
Um, I've had that too, and I don't know how to explain it. I don't. I guess I could just say, well, I was, scientifically speaking, I was in an emotional time, and But to me,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like there was something more to it than that, and I don't know how to,
Well, it's kind of like if you spent your life reading about a car crash, you'd never really fully appreciate it until you're in a car crash.
right.
Like you spend your life reading about this religion and how this character died and then came back to life, and then the world started based on a blink of an eye, and all that seems extremely far-fetched and stuff, and you question it until you have a religious experience that's different for everybody. It's like, of course you're not going to believe a lot of the things that seem so far-fetched,
Right.
but you'll believe what you feel. And what I've felt has me believing, you know what I
Mm,
mean? It's kind of like watching a movie and seeing a car accident, being like,
mm,
oh, I can imagine how that would feel. And then getting into a car accident, it's a completely different thing,
right.
but it's the same at the same time. I had another instance of that after the fire. Like,
Mm,
my wife isn't a very religious person,
hmm.
but and I totally respect that. And we've talked about it, and I'm not going to talk for her, but she has we see eye to eye.
Hmm.
And after the fire, man, I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know
Hmm.
why it happened, and I had, it was like, I mean, I just felt like so unlucky
Hmm.
that like all of this horrific, like, what did I
What
do
did I do? Yeah.
to deserve this? I even, dude, this is the person's banned now, but I had somebody ask me like, you have all this negative stuff happen to you. You should ask, you should look at yourself and ask yourself, why is that happening? And you
Wow.
know,
Really?
yeah, it was a really
It's an
there
interesting
was
way
like
to think of it. Yeah.
there was a language barrier, but the guy was just, I understood what he meant, but it was the completely wrong time to be. I just lost everything.
Hmm.
Anyway, but I mean, there's some truth there, right? Like, I was wondering, like, what the hell I had done to deserve all of this, and
Right.
like, um, while I still can't answer that, and I don't think that that's actually how it works. I don't think that what had happened to us was nothing that I had done, or anything that I had experienced. I think the outcome of everyone coming together to help us out was way more telling than this idea that I deserved
Hmm.
getting in. It's kind of what
Hmm.
my faith maybe taught me, in that, or my friends or my
Hmm.
family or whatever taught me, in that when you have like a really bad thing happen to you, the outcome is kind of more telling than the outcome is way more telling than the reason why it
Hmm.
happened. And like, the community that we are both a part of, and everything around me, like, lifted me up
Right.
higher than I was before.
Right.
And
How crazy is that, right?
right, and
Yeah.
like, put me in a position, kind of, uh, where I was, emotionally not better off, but
Hmm.
like, they replaced all of my stuff,
Yeah.
and like, it's so instead of me asking like, what did I do to deserve this, I was
Hmm.
kind of grateful for, I felt like I had done the right thing leading up to that,
Hmm.
as opposed to doing wrong things, and that's why it happened.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like in a
And
lot of ways, the relationships you had created or helped to create, like you had done enough right things in a way that you were able to recover from that. Like that's another way to look
exactly.
at it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to like, man, who did, what
Who? What?
god did I
What
piss
lie did you?
off to burn my house down?
You said
You
bidet
know?
again, didn't you? But
Yeah,
bam.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like, faith and religion, and my friends and family kind of instilled
Hmm.
that mindset. Like,
The good
it's like,
mindset.
I talk to streamers who, they'll have 2,000 subscribers, and then the next month they'll have 300 or 400,
Hmm.
and they're asking them, so, they obviously are questioning, like, what did I do? And
Hmm.
like, why, who did
Why?
I
Yeah.
why, like, why is this happening? Am I not successful? And I think, well, my grandpa Sonny taught me, and I think people find opportunities in those lulls,
Hmm.
like, when you're at your absolute lowest, what opportunity can come from that? Like, you only get so many chances to reinvent yourself, or you only get so many chances to start something different. You're not going to start something different when you're at your high.
Hmm.
If you're getting 200-300 viewers every stream and you're used to 50, you're not going to play a different game then.
Right.
But if you're at your lowest, that's your opportunity to try something different that might catch on fire,
Right. Right.
And like, the fire taught me that.
Right.
Taught me and Edith both that. It was this opportunity to start again.
Right. So this is, I mean, it's just interesting to hear you say that, and this is kind of a little bit what I'm thinking about, and kind of going through where, so the fire happens, right?
Yeah.
One line of thinking could be God. I mean, God causes everything to happen, and God,
Right.
it's God's will happens. So God gave you a fire, so therefore you must have done something that deserved getting flamed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, so you can think of it that way, or you can look at there's probably other Bible verses in scripture that would point towards a different understanding of that, where you think, no, it's an opportunity for, you know, grace and love to abound. It was an opportunity for you to feel that love from your community. It was an opportunity for them to show it, which maybe was good for some of those folks who that gave them something to feel that, like
Yeah.
you can see it that way. And I guess it's tricky for me because to me, either of those viewpoints, strictly from a what is the right Christian way to look at it, I could argue either point, either side of either viewpoint was valid. But
I
as a
think so.
but just as a human being, as a person, and with my morals and stuff, I like number two.
Yeah.
And so it's I'm sort of like, do I really believe number two is true and number one is not true in terms of that's what Christianity says? Or has hearing this stuff, learning this stuff kind of just got me to the point where I can see that number two and it's just the right thing,
Right.
and so you know what I mean? Like I don't know how to put it, but
Well, let me put it this way.
yeah.
Maybe this will help. The way I think of it is, I know for a fact, and God has told me, or I have been
Hmm.
told, or I know for a fact after experiencing the fire. And I'm not saying that this is what you meant, but
Yeah.
I didn't deserve that.
Hmm.
Nothing that I had done in my life
Right.
deserved what we went through on that night. Now, by no means am I perfect, obviously not, and I've done really bad things in my life, but
Sure.
that was a level of, so okay,
Right.
if it wasn't that, then what was it? And I think what it was for me was kind of in the same way that, like, lightning strikes in a forest and burns off kind of the old undercut, kind of the old stuff, so that new life can come through.
Sure.
For me, it was this opportunity to kind of, um maybe I would think I would deserve it, or maybe if the outcome was that we didn't have any insurance, I didn't have any sort of community, I
Mm.
didn't have anyone to help me,
Right.
like, then, yeah, like, what then what?
Right.
Like, what would I have done?
Right.
But I in this weird way, what the fire how do I put this? I feel like the fire taught me about gave me this new I was at a low,
Mm.
well, all sorts of things.
Mm.
Like, everyone I know now has like a fire plan.
Mm.
People were signing up for renters insurance who had never had it. Um, it was just kind of this. Let me put it this way: if I had to experience a fire to help, maybe, like, I would rather I would, and me and Edith have talked about this a lot. I am glad that the fire happened to us and not like a single mother
Right.
or a kid that's just on his getting on his feet, or, like, if I'm happy that I
That could
would happily,
that could have been a bigger knockout blow for somebody else.
totally, and
Right.
and the fact that it happened to me, I do it all over again.
Right.
If it meant that somebody who isn't as lucky as me got to learn something from it, or whatever, like, I would take that torch any day, and I'm not just saying that.
Right.
I it was the most horrific experience of my entire life. I have PTSD
Mm.
issues because of it. I'm seeking therapy because of it. I still do. The kitchen light flickered the other day, and it was
Mm.
up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, like,
Mm.
just stressing out. Like, there's all sorts of these, like, residual side effects that come from a traumatic event, like having, I looked down the hallway and saw smoke coming up through my carpet. It was just horrific,
Wow.
like, scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't mean to cuss.
No, that's okay.
But like, tying it all back to religion, like, it was an opportunity. You know, you got to find an opportunity in it, and I think um maybe the opportunity in it for me was just maybe somebody else doesn't have to go through it, you know, or at least it was
Mm,
me and not somebody who was really struggling, or
mm,
I don't really, I don't really know in terms of like, I don't think I deserved it. I think it was more like, I don't think it was one or two to
mm,
tie it all back, you know. It was like I think it was an experience that I'm glad I'm not glad that I went through it,
mm,
but um in a way I'm glad that it, you know, shit, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm
mm.
glad that it was, I'm glad that it was me and not somebody else. I'm
Yeah.
glad that the opportunity, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my family came together. People came from all the wood. It gave me a
Mm,
I had a new outlook on humanity,
mm. That's
you
pretty
know.
cool. You know?
Yeah, no, whether you want to call that like a religious experience or not. I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like I got off track there. Sorry.
No.
It
No,
gets kind of
that's
weird to, yeah.
yeah, talk about it. Hmm.
Yeah, man, fires, like, they're not cool.
Jeez. No. All right, that's
It's
good.
not it's not like a tight fun thing to go through.
No, it sounds pretty awful. I mean, I remember it. I remember it being just like kind of surreal. I couldn't
Well, like
believe it.
I have like a 3D printing farm now.
Yeah,
So
you
like
do.
I have like multiple cameras on everything and
Hmm.
fire alarms all over the place.
How many printers you got?
I have 9 running right now.
Oh.
I have 15 total. But 3 to 2 or 3 of them are kind of always down or being worked on, and then
Hmm.
when I fix one I'll rotate it, and then I'll take the oldest one down and like service it and
I see.
oil it up and
So you have
like
kind of 10 to 12 functioning ones most of the time.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I checked one the other day and it was like it had ran for it had ran pretty much 24/7 since like the beginning of November,
Oh my
and how
gosh.
many ever hours that is. And it's crazy because like I'll put them together and then I'll when I go to like service them, you can
Hmm.
just see you know when a piece of plastic runs over a smooth rail 22,000 times every 24 hours,
Mm.
that piece of plastic, it's almost like it becomes weathered like a stone in a stream, you know? It
Mm.
gets like these pieces that used to be really rough or like smooth because they've ran over this thing over and over and over again, and
Mm.
it's kind of it's kind of crazy, but I know absolutely I know every nut and bolt on those printers, man.
Mm.
Every single piece of the extruder, the hot end, the heat stop, the stepper motors, like all of them. I could build a 3D printer from scratch.
Dude, that's crazy. It's
I have
funny when you
absolutely no desire.
no, no desire to. No.
Yeah, I don't. I
Yeah.
like hate 3D printing
Somebody
now,
else
but
makes them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's funny when you say that about it because that reminded me of a song. I remember like this worship song that was called it's called River God, and it was about how we're like stones in the stream, and the water going by is like God's presence, and how over time it doesn't always feel good, but that it shapes us into this kind of smooth, beautiful thing instead of this kind of craggy thing. Funny that you kind
Yeah,
of said that, and that's where my head went. Yeah,
that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah,
yeah.
I think the experiences that we go through shape us into who we are, and it's kind of interesting because like a lot of people who we consider maybe are bad people, if you were to sit down and talk to them about like what their time in the stream has been like,
Mm.
you might realize that
Yeah.
they're shaped that way, be maybe
Right.
not of any fault of their own, or
Right.
like maybe not so, maybe they're not as bad as you think, you
Yeah.
know.
And maybe given what they've been through, they're actually remarkable that they're not worse. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they've kind of done the best they can, and that's something that I feel like, and this is kind of where I'm at, where like I feel like my faith and Christianity has given, and a lot of the good teaching I've heard about what it's like to be Christ-like, and what does that mean? If you just, just looking at people like God made them intentionally, as opposed to it's just another freaking Homo sapien walking around.
Yeah.
And you start having this understanding. You're looking for the divine in other people. You're giving them a chance. All that stuff, and how good that's been for me, and how that's helped me be a better person to others and more loving. But it doesn't. That's not the same as that's true, right? That God it does exist and actually made them. It's
Yeah.
it's it's valuable to me whether it's true or not. Do you know what I'm saying?
Is it like
I don't know.
do you have to have truths? Like in order for you to believe in something, does it have to be something that is like does it
Right.
have to be
Right.
proven true?
Right. And I think for me, I think my faith was always is kind of two pillars. Like it's true and it's good. And I think the true one was never as strong as the good one.
Yeah.
And as I when I took the job to be the youth pastor, they're like, usually people have a degree in religion or whatever, so you don't have that, so you're going to start going to school. So I started going, like, attending like a master's seminary in
Oh
Hamilton.
wow.
And so I started learning about how the Bible was written, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is even shakier than I thought, the way they did, they
Right.
threw this sucker together and all the kind of stuff. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
I saw the wizard behind the curtain a little bit,
Right.
and I was like, I'm not sure anymore about the true, but it's so good. Like some of the stuff is so
Mhm.
good. But then over the years, it's like, how much, like you're a kid coming to the youth group, right? Back when you went, you
Right.
came, you participated, you enjoyed it. It felt like this kind of cool, safe space to go to. You were enjoying and a part of the community, right? If
Right.
if you came to my youth group, that would be enough for me as the youth pastor. I'd be like, this is awesome. This guy's coming. Maybe he's had some rockiness, whatever, but he's come. He's a part of it, making friends. He's part of the group. This is great. But there's something in the church that's like, oh, but is he saved? Has he
Is there?
accepted? Yeah, there is. It's not in everyone, but there,
Right.
but it's there. Has he got baptized? Has he, like 2 years after you stop coming? Is there like, hey, what happened to Bruce? Like, we thought he
Yeah.
like it's about getting you into church, as opposed to getting you to just being friends with you. Do you know what I mean?
Is
And and
yeah.
and that's the part I have a problem with. It sounds to me like your experience was that you never got that pressure from people, and that's great. That's how I was too. But I felt like at times I wasn't doing the job right because I didn't care about the other side. I didn't give a crap if you were whatever you were. I don't care if you're going to get drunk every night. I want you to have a better life. I want you to make good
Yeah.
decisions, but I'm not it wasn't about judgment for me or getting you to cross some like line to be in. Um but
See,
I felt like that's what I should have done that. That's what a good, yeah, a good person doing
yeah.
that job would have done a bit.
I think that I totally know what you mean. It's almost like, and I'm only making this analogy because it's something that we both do. It's almost like Twitch wants you to be a streamer for money, and they want you to try to get
Right.
as many subs and and be get as many people as you can.
Right.
But what got you into streaming wasn't any of that. It was
Right.
just you wanting to play video games and hang out with people.
Right.
It's like the church wants you to push this agenda,
Yes.
but you're not in it for that. And I think what you got to ask, I think what going back to my grandpa Sonny, he always had me kind of he taught me very early to question. Steve Jobs has a
Mm.
famous quote that's like, when you realize that all of the walls around you were built by somebody else, that's when you start to realize that you could like push through them and go make your own walls or
Mm.
something along those lines. and
Right.
and I think like if I've always questioned is, so say for example, like if a church is pushing this sort of agenda to get baptized. I've been baptized.
Right.
To have a to ask the Lord to forgive you of your sins
Right.
through like a ceremonial process, or like if a church is really pushing that,
Right.
that's fine. But what the Lord and what Jesus and what the Christ means to that person might be might not be those sort of rudimentary things, right? Like for
Right.
me, it was never about what the church wanted. I wanted to do what I thought God wanted me to do.
Right.
And like I'm the only one who could answer that because I'm the only one who could talk to him the way that I talk to him, I guess. Or like I got feelings. I was told things, and I don't care if a church is telling me it's wrong or whatever. Like
Right.
if that's the feeling that I'm getting, then that's the feeling I'm getting. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like
It does. And it's I mean, no one can tell you what you are, but you know,
right.
like there's this so I don't mean it like I don't mean it
I'm also
like
very stubborn, so that could be
well that
that too.
helps. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's this oh, just hang on a sec. Yeah. Not right now. Maybe in a little while. Sorry. Sorry.
No worries.
Um yeah, I don't mean it in like necessarily like a church or like kind of man-made rules. I'm even talking about like what the Bible says about what we need, what who's in, who's out, how this works, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Do I agree with that? Because as soon as it's as soon as it's like it's just what I feel. If that's what I believe, that I think there's a God, and I think that God speaks to me in my heart, and in certain situations, I get a push to do this or that, right? And that
Yeah.
there's some moral guidance when I need it. There's some touch of inspiration when I need it. Like that's coming from somewhere. It's not just from me.
Right.
That's fine. And if that's what I think, then that's what I think. But I think Christianity, the way it's been historically, is no, 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 no. You might get touches here and there, but we have the Bible that says a bunch of stuff about what God is like, what He wants and doesn't want from you, what behavior is okay and is not okay. And if you're getting a push to murder that guy, guess what? That's probably not from God, even if you think it is, right? And so
Right.
there's kind of this these sort of rules and regulations around it. And I guess
Kind of like a TOS.
kind of like a TOS. Here's a
Yeah.
framework
Yeah.
within which you're allowed to operate, but don't go outside the framework. And that's the crux of it to me is that is my is my moral compass the thing that I trust in completely, or am I willing to do what I think a lot of religions do, which is give that up a bit and no, this is the moral compass. You're broken. Your compass doesn't work, but ours does. So you got to operate by this one. And I think that's the heart of it for me. I'm not convinced that this faith that I've been a part of for a while is completely true. And I'm actually at least on a few topics that I've gotten into, hell and homosexuality in the
Yeah.
Bible is really like there's some stuff that I'm like, no, my moral compass is better than it in some
Yeah.
ways, and so I'm not willing to give mine up.
My
Um,
mom always
does that
says
make
that.
sense to you? Yeah.
Totally.
Hmm.
Like I remember asking my mom, like, well, if you're so religious, that must mean that you hate homosexuals.
Hmm.
And she says she'll flat out say like, the God that I believe in doesn't hate anyone.
Right. Right.
And like I do think that and obviously I really look up to my mom, and I know that she's not like a bad person. And I do think that there is some truth to that. Like I wouldn't ever want to believe in something that would hurt somebody else,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
and I can't. No one's gonna be able to answer that except for you. You know,
Right.
like, but I do get it, man. I question those walls all the time. You know, and I almost hate like associating myself with uh a group that does have hate like that. Like that's
Right.
just not something that I would ever want to be a part of. So why would I even
Right. And
like
I
I
s-
it,
and I spent a lot of time in the church arguing with people who had a lot who didn't mind that wasn't a fight for them. That they
yeah.
didn't they were like, yeah, God doesn't like gay people because I think somewhere in them they didn't, so
That's what it
it
is,
wasn't
right?
and like, yeah, if you're not in the group you go to hell, right? like
Right.
like
It
like
was
this
like
this is our tribe, we're right, and that gives me special position in life that I know the truth and someone else doesn't, so why should they get in? Like there it's a bit of that.
and listen, like the times change, right? Like if God is real, like there's the things people believe in now. I don't subscribe to that. Like I think you hit the nail on the head. Like if somebody's homophobic, they're going to use an excuse like religion to have that to cater to and justify their
Sure.
weird fear, you know. I
Sure.
don't think, but like I just keep going back to I believe in a God that loves everyone.
Right.
And if that God is not real, then if how could a God that is somebody, how could they not how could you not love I just don't understand. Like that's just a thing I don't get.
Yeah.
Like how could you not
Well,
how could you not love somebody?
it becomes more complicated, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not loving. Although I think there are Christians who don't love people, which is a problem.
Yes.
But I think they would argue that God does, generally speaking. But it would, I have kids, and I don't want them to lie. So if my kids are liars, I still love them, but I tell them not to lie. So
Right.
that would be the analogy for any behavior,
Right.
from a deity. This is not good for you. Trust me. Don't do it. And so if you and so I don't to in my experience and my just what I think, I don't think homosexuality is on that list. I see how lying hurts people. I see how
Right.
murdering hurts people. I can get that stuff. I don't see how this hurts people.
Either do I.
In fact I see how it helps. Yeah,
Right.
love
So
is
do I.
great. So do it. But
And if there it's not even on the same wavelength. In fact, I find it
no.
in an opposite group. Like if somebody's willing to go through, like if somebody is
Mm,
courageous enough to be honest with the world on how they're really feeling, then they're the
right.
exact opposite of a liar, you know?
Right.
And like I I I I welcome that with open arms.
Right.
I don't think, some of my best friends are gay,
Right.
and I think that that's the most beautiful thing in the world for them.
Right.
And if a group of people or a religion is telling them that they're wrong, then that's just not the God that I believe in.
Right. And
I don't know.
yeah, and I'm with you on that. And I think where I'm at is how at peace am I with taking the stuff out of this, keep carrying it with me, the stuff that I like, and leaving behind the stuff I don't like. Where I'm
I
kind of
think
picking and choosing. Whereas I think there are some Christians who would look down on that and say, "Look, yeah, you're just picking the nice verses and you're leaving out the tough stuff. So you're not really a committed follower." And to me, I'm like, if I can't do that, then I'm saying bye to all of it.
see,
So,
okay,
you know what I mean?
I very specifically I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about, and I think I'm not trying to encourage one way or another,
Hmm.
but I think the sooner you start thinking along those lines of maybe not picking and choosing, but just believing in what you really believe in and choosing not to believe in the things that you don't, doors will like things will start making more sense.
Right.
Like I mean or they won't. I don't think I mean categorizing religion into like check boxes just seems so counterproductive to me.
Hmm.
I mean, isn't the whole point of religion, or isn't the whole point of Christianity, to be, as good of a as good of a and loving of a person as you can be?
Right.
That's the way it was taught to me.
Right.
Maybe I just got lucky in the two churches that I went to.
I,
Maybe I did. Maybe it doesn't have to be so orthodox
right.
in my mind.
Right.
And I'm totally. Of course, you'll always question, right? Like if I don't go around knocking on people's doors, or if I don't spread the word, or if I don't pray every night, like am I going to go to hell?
Right.
That's the way that's the way I think a lot of kids were taught.
Right.
Um, it's
Right.
a, it, but if that means that I have to spend my life being hateful towards somebody,
Right. Screw
I'm
that.
not going to choose to do that.
Right. Well, I think it's important to, yeah. And I know I flip flop because sometimes I talk about me, sometimes I'm talking about you, and I think we tend to see things differently when it's ourselves versus when it's someone else. So just
Yeah,
to jump onto you talking about you and what you're doing, I mean, even from a sort of Christian lens, which can be skewed and view things just a bit differently. I like if you think about a Twitch community, like haven't haven't you in some ways you've been that older guy in that parking lot at Costco? You've been like you've created a place where people can come and be part. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying
yeah,
it's all you. Everyone kind of makes it together, but
right.
don't you feel like in some ways you have been working towards creating a place for people to have fun and feel safe and all that? Like you've created a pocket of that, a tiny pocket of that in this great big world. And isn't that, I think God would think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't see any difference, to be
Right.
honest.
Yeah, I don't
Like
either.
it's kind of like we're gonna, yeah, that's, well, first of all, it's a very nice thing of you to say, and I really appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, we're given those opportunities, or when we're presented with opportunities to do the right thing or the wrong thing. I think everybody I know would choose to do the right thing regardless, of, and what more could you ask for? Yeah, in terms of like
Mm.
my community and stuff,
Right.
um, it does sometimes feel, in a good way, kind of like like a kind of give me those feelings I got when I used to go to like youth group,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and I like to think that, I've gotten DMs, I'm sure you have too,
Mm.
of people showing, telling you that you got them out of a tough spot, or that
Sure.
they really appreciate you, you know, otherwise who knows where they would be.
Right.
And if that isn't on par with what I think my God would want me to be doing, then I don't know what is,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
does the Bible say, something about like spreading the word, and like, that's my version of how I'm doing it,
Right.
maybe. And I'm not, nothing to do with religion.
Right.
I think that's, just kind of like, I've lucky enough to be in a position to get to do that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, um like Tim the Tap Man,
Hmm.
he's religious.
Oh, is he?
Eh, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and he talks about it sometimes, and talks about it in terms of like, it's cool it's cool to be open with how you believe but not push it.
Right.
And I think that that's something that any pastor, or anybody who I've met, who has like a formal education in religion, um would would come in for that, or would say, it's good
Right.
that you're doing that.
Right.
Because, I remember a lot of times in high school where somebody would be like, do you believe in God? And I'd be like, no, because all my friends were around me.
Yeah.
But Tim the Tatman's up there with 40,000
Right.
video game viewers saying, "Yeah, I
Right.
believe in God."
Right.
And like that's not a, he's not doing it to be commendable, or he's not
Right.
doing it to because he feels like that's the message he needs to put across.
Right.
He's doing it because he's like true to himself, and that's what he believes.
Right.
And like I think that's really hard to do.
Right.
And I think stuff like that is, it takes some courage, which any, like I said, any pastors or whoever should, in my opinion, be like, it's good that you did that. Like, give you a little pat on the back for that. I
Right.
don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Even though, like, I'm not, it's not even like a religious thing. I'm just being honest. It's all about being honest.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe in God. Yes, it makes me feel good, and
Right.
and if you're not cool with that, then that's totally fine. But like, that's just who I am, and hopefully we can still be friends.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel that,
It's
man.
weird, man.
Hmm.
I don't these conversations, like, especially because you always kind of feel like you don't know what you can or can't say.
Mm.
You don't want to sound weird or cheesy or but at the same time, just F it sometimes. Like, I don't know. After this break, it's been kind of an eye-opening, like,
Mm.
I don't know. I've never I feel different now about streaming, like, as a whole than I
Mm.
ever have.
Really? What's changed?
Yeah. Um I just don't care anymore.
Mm.
Like, I don't care anymore about like I just got this like merch offer today, this
Mm.
like partnership thing. The Tased is on it, and I applied for it, and I was like, wow, this is like, a year ago I would have been like, this is really cool, but now I'm like, well, if I can't upload like a picture of myself in the shape of a thumb, then I don't really want to do it, Like, they have to like approve all the designs and stuff, and I'm like, they're never gonna let me do a bidet t-shirt. Like, so I don't really know if I want to do it.
Right.
And like, you spend so long caring about how many people are watching, and you spend so long caring about the right game to play, and you spend so long trying to get partnered and maintaining an average viewership and all of that you
Right.
kind of forget why you started doing it in the first place.
Right.
And the reason I started streaming in the first place is because I gained a bunch of weight and was too afraid to go outside because I thought people were going to look at me weird and be like, oh, look at that big fat guy,
Right.
So I started streaming to kind of be an idiot online without showing people what I look like.
Right.
And like, it gave me a total escape from that. And now I'm sitting here worried about t-shirts. It just seems so stupid,
Yeah. Like, isn't it about being there for the next person that's feeling that way tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like starting a band and then caring about how many records you're going to sell.
Yeah.
Versus like just wanting to have fun in the youth group hallway thing again,
Yeah.
And like, how do we get back to doing it for why we wanted to do it in the first place?
Right. Well, and it's, like, on the flip side of that too, it's kind of like life was simpler when you're a kid, and
Yeah.
we all miss that and the simplicity of it to a degree, and want to reclaim it. But the truth is, we have a life and we have bills to pay, and we've got to make decisions as using all of our intellect and all of our wisdom to try to make it through life as well as we can. So there's that exists. But
the weird thing about Twitch is like, there are a lot of people who watch me regularly who don't want me to go back to that. They're like, we want structure. We want you to play the same game. We want you to, and I get that too. They don't like this chaotic, like,
right.
Jesus, what, you're watching a picture of a hot dog. You're watching a video on how to boil hot dogs now. Like you used to be a spaceman. Like what is
What
happening?
has happened? Yeah.
It'd be like if you were really into Friends, and then all of a sudden Friends is like, we're gonna be Seinfeld now.
Right.
You'd be like, well, I want Friends. Like
Right.
you can't just go
Or
like.
if you stream the Red Green Show for 2.5 years, and then we're like, yeah,
Yeah.
F it.
You know how it is. It's
Yeah.
like being in a rock band and being like, okay, you know what? We're gonna play some jazz this week
We're gonna
because I
play
really
everything off
love
our
jazz.
new album. Boo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The new album, dude.
The new
It's
album is
like
so good.
heaven forbid a band come out with a new album that doesn't just sound exactly like the old album.
Play the old stuff. You
Yeah,
suck.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
It's
true.
it's
But
like you're
it's
not. We don't allow ourselves to evolve.
yeah. And even though we've got to make good business decisions and all that, like that's part of just being an adult and whatever. It's streaming is interesting to me because it's very important the mindset of the streamer. Like it's the content is you, so you've got to find a way. Like I don't know how someone could just mail it in. I don't know how someone could say, okay, this game is kind of working, so I'm gonna 9 to 5 this game for the rest of my life. Like it just because I don't streaming for me is so much about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. I feel like that adds to the value of the stream more than a game I'm playing. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it feels to me. And so you've got to you can't just treat it like a pure business. You've got to locate yourself in it somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, it's like it's it, you have to. So you stream one. Let's say you stream a game every day for like 2 weeks, and you start seeing a lot of followers. Your viewer count starts going up. Your sub numbers start going up. You start feeling success, and that feeling of success becomes in your mind just as good
Mm,
as you felt when you were just flying by the seat of your pants,
right,
if not better.
right.
You're like, I feel established, I feel cemented,
This is
I
great.
feel this is great, and I love this game, you
Right,
know? And then your love for the game starts to go away, but the support's still there.
right.
So you still feel sure enough, after 3-4 months,
Mm,
you start to it's you at least for me, I know after a while, say with like No Man's Sky, I start to feel this like it's very obvious I'm not having a good time.
right.
It's very obvious. And like I need to do something. And then
Mm,
I go through this big anxiety thing where like I don't know what to play, and I'll play something else and I'll have, a third of the people there, and it's just it's
mm.
but then you see these people who brand themselves as variety.
Sure.
What their thing is never sticking with the same thing.
Right,
And I get a lot of jealousy, and I long to have that
right,
until I do it, and then I want the thing.
right.
It's like the grass is always going to be greener.
And you just kind of just flip sides of the
You
fences every
flip.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to be a variety streamer now. You do that for a month, and then
yeah.
No Man's Sky comes out with an update, and then you're the No Man's Sky guy. And then you get sick and tired of No Man's Sky, so you do the variety thing, and then you're like, the entire time you're doing the variety thing, you're like, I just wish I had a solid thing. And then 4 years pass, and you're in a garage talking about religion to a guy that you used to watch his dad's TV show.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It's the common path.
Let's pray. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like it's wild, man. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, it's been fun to watch, man, and I hear you saying that, and I've kind of seen that as a viewer of yours. Um, and it's one of these things where it's like everyone gives you advice. Like if you say that on stream, everyone will be like, dude, just do what you want. We're here. But it's like that, and it's great to have people who say that and support. Like that feels good. But the truth is, you know how it is when there's a question in front of you and you're the only one who can answer it. Other people giving you the answer, it just doesn't work. It's almost it can almost be annoying because it's like, look,
Yeah.
it just because you say that doesn't mean that it's over. Oh, it's answered. Now I don't have to worry about. No, this is for me to struggle with, and so I wouldn't even think. I have no idea what you should do, but
Well, and like
yeah,
I really, really do. I really have noticed that I have found a lot of success in seeing those scary moments as an opportunity
mm,
to try something.
right,
Like there's always, I do believe that the what is it? The journey is is the story or whatever. Like
mm,
the end goal isn't what I'm after. I'm after having as much fun as I can until I can't stream anymore.
right,
And like every time I feel that like shit, like I don't want to play No Man's Sky anymore,
mm,
I really try to reach deep down and find an opportunity in it, in that feeling, and just being like, okay, well, like let's try something new. I
right,
don't know. I don't have any other answer besides that. Like just trying to find opportunity in that anxiety. It's really hard, but
mm,
I do think it's kind of important.
yeah, man,
There's a book. Edith got me this book, and it's about how all the really successful people in life, or there's all these like stories of what is it called? Anyway, there's like a back in the early like times of the Industrial Revolution or something, there was a guy who, or no, it was the Great Depression.
mm,
During the Great Depression, there was this guy. He's a really famous guy. I don't remember the name.
mm-hmm,
He took like all the money he had and invested it in these industries that were like tanked, and because he saw an opportunity, and then because he knew that the depression was going to lift,
right,
he just knew that it was, or he had faith that it was, or whatever. And it did lift, and he became instantly a millionaire when
mm,
things started going back to normal. And I do, to kind of tie up the religious talk, like,
mm,
there's he knew in his mind that he was doing what he thought was going to be the best for him.
right,
And I do think that maybe I try to do that with my religion too, my
mm,
faith.
right, man.
I'm not going to follow YouTube videos. I'm not going to, if somebody's telling me to go one way, like, and it's different than what I really think,
Yeah,
then I'm going to stick with what I really think.
yeah,
And I think there's something to be said for that.
yeah. And if your faith kind of gives you the strength, like the courage of your convictions a bit, then that's great. And I mean, at the end of the day, what else we got?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, thank you so much for talking to me, man. That was
Yeah, I'm sorry for the long-windedness. It
no.
feels good to
That's
get
what
it
these
all out
are.
there.
I need this is long form
Long
conversation.
form,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? That's what they call
Yeah,
it. Yeah, I think.
I like it.
But I
Long
appreciate.
something. Long Johns.
Was there anything you wanted to say that you didn't get out? That you're like, oh, I really wanted to say this and I didn't say it.
Yes,
Okay,
actually, there is one thing.
do it.
It's that if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can. Just kidding.
Awesome.
Switch Prime. Yeah. Well, I love it, buddy, and thanks so much for having me on, and just for being you.
Yeah, I love you, man. Thank you for
I love
doing
you
it.
too, dude.
Appreciate the time.
All right. Bye bye.
Later, dude.